You need a feeling of unconditional love so that the soul then feels able to express, the body feels able to express.
I've never felt this before. I felt so safe to just be myself. So, Cezzy, we're live.
Oh, we're live. We're going.
We're live,
here.
baby. Thank you. Thank you for making some time. I know you're a busy woman. I best say girl. You're a busy woman. We're here at your headquarters, Spinal Energetics in Richmond, which I've kind of obviously seen your progression over the last couple of years since we met. And, coming and seeing you and doing Spinal with you is a big part of, I guess, my healing journey, and the fact that I'm even doing this right now, because this really scared the shit out of me, which is why I resisted doing it. I did ayahuasca, I did the toad, I've done EMDR, all just so I could confidently share my voice, not behind the curtains.
Yeah, I got you.
But in this capacity. But anyway, talking about myself.
I love talking about Scotty.
We're here at your headquarters, Spinal Energetics.
Yeah.
Let's kick it off. What the fuck is Spinal Energetics?
Oh, look, it's something that's really hard to describe with words.
Exactly.
And you would find it too whenever you've tried to describe it to someone like a family or friend, when they're like, where are you going? Who are you seeing? What is this stuff?
You know what I say?
What do you say?
I can't explain it to you. You just have to go and
experience it.
You have to experience it, because there's no other way that you're going to be able to understand. And I told you I was seeing somebody prior to you for a few years, and I had never seen anybody else do it. And then I was like, oh, there's this girl, Sarah. I don't know how I came across you.
I think it was Instagram
Was
or
it
something.
Insta? I think I saw you on Insta.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, okay, cool. I've kind of done con for a couple of years now. I'm ready for kind of next level. And then I came in and I was like, oh fuck, this is like another level, because it's not just the clinical version.
Yeah.
It's this whole other energy, the space that you create, everything from the way that you've curated the furniture, both here and in your Armadale place, as well as the I know it sounds crazy, but the smells, everything is so intentional. And I was just telling your friend before, even while you're doing it, you're like singing, and I was like, oh my God, it's just such a safe space to heal. And I felt like you're a little bit wacky like me, so I just felt so much permission.
Just a little bit. That's putting it nicely, Scott.
She's off the Richter. Yeah. So what you're saying is you can't explain it, you have to experience it. But if you were to, if someone is obviously watching this as video and it's audio, for the people that are listening and watching, like, what would you say to somebody who doesn't know what it is and should experience it?
Look, the best way to put it is that we're working with the innate physician, the inner intelligence within your body. We're working with that part of who you are to unwind patterns that are stored in your nervous system.
Okay.
Through the energetic field, though. That's the
patterns?
difference.
I mean, obviously for you and I, it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm deep down a spiritual and develop. It's like, for the average person who might listen to this, who hasn't done all that, that would be goobly gulp to them.
Yeah.
So if you were to layman that down, what we're talking about is there's, number one, there's a nervous system, and that nervous system, it stores?
It stores every experience you've ever gone through. So I want you to look at your body, whether you're looking at it from the physical point of view or from the energetic point of view. It is a fingerprint. It is a mapping of everything that you've experienced as a human being in this life. That is what we're working with, and that's what stores. Now, there's not necessarily a negative or a positive or good or bad things that store, but the things that store to create tension or disconnect or dis-ease within the body, they're the ones that we're wanting to connect to, and that way we can unwind that tension, and that way you can work in a more optimal way as a human being.
So what I heard there, and to paint the picture, the nervous system goes through the spine, right? And it connects to
the nervous
digestion.
system is the spine.
Exactly, right? So there's the bone, there's the vertebra, and the nervous system is all the wiring that goes through, correct?
We've got the spine, we've got the brain, and then we've got all the communication that occurs through the nervous system. That communication is what helps you sleep. It's what helps you digest. Anything automatic in the body, your heart beating, a healing of a cut.
That's why it's called the autonomic nervous system.
The autonomic, which is another way of saying the automatic systems that are within each of us.
System.
Yeah, and we all have survival mechanisms. We all have patterns, and we all have our ability to, I guess, integrate things that have occurred in our lives. And when we think about experiences that maybe have been challenging for us, when we are working through those, or even more so not working through them, where does it go? It goes into your system.
So let's say I'm running late for work.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling that, oh shit, I'm going to get in trouble or whatever. That's going to store just a small amount of kind of stress in my nervous system, and it's going to tighten things up, isn't it? So my spine's going to get tighter, my neck's going to get a little bit tighter, my chest is going to feel a bit tighter, and that's when we start to get that constriction and that anxiety builds up.
Yes.
Take it a step further, I have a horrible breakup with a partner, and that's going to store more tension in the body.
Correct. Well, you have to think about it this way. Whatever you're experiencing is going to be reflected in your system.
Like an emotional charge is that's happening.
With spinal energetics, we're more so focused on the emotional storage.
Yeah.
So yes, we can help with physical pain and things like that as well, of course, but definitely more so if it's related to the emotional experiences that are then not being transformed from your body. So it's natural for us to say be late for work, get a bit nervous, have a response, go from that sympathetic state, that fight or flight state, and then go back into parasympathetic. We're supposed to be waving through both nervous systems.
But that's the natural regulation.
That's the natural regulation.
Yeah.
Most of us are actually predominantly just in the sympathetic state, which is that fight or flight, that survival mechanism, that stress state, and chronically, not just for a short period of time, chronically.
What is that? I mean, for me, what that looked like was digestion issues. What it looked like was brain fog. What it looked like was chronic fatigue for pretty much 20-something years of my life. What it looked like was burning out every couple of months.
You can get physical symptoms.
Not being able to cope, neck pain, all these types of issues. Is that common?
It is common. It is common, but it doesn't mean that's the way you should live.
Yes,
just
of course
because
not.
it's common doesn't mean it's optimal.
Yes.
And there is a better way to live in that regard.
Yes.
You don't have to live with that. But what's happening is in the West, in our culture as well, we push things aside, we push things down, we suppress, we repress. Even getting people in the sessions, one of the most challenging things is not that they don't feel the need to move, that they can't connect to it or feel safe enough to then express that.
Yeah,
So,
I can relate to that. I can relate to thinking, my body might feel like it wants to move, but I almost feel almost like this felt, so I don't do it anymore, but this embarrassment to, I've seen your videos online, people, I'm sure as we were speaking about and even though I know with my wife who's posting and kind of blowing up online at the moment as well, you can cop some hate, right? Because people are like, fuck this, that can't be real. Because people are moving like worms on a bed and you're not even touching the body. So for people that don't know what spinal energetics is, number one, check out Sarah's, I'll drop all of her links underneath. Yeah. And I've done it personally, just so you guys know.
And you moved. It's real. I didn't pay you.
And I've done it with I've done it with 3 different practitioners in 3 different locations. And so it's real. Don't matter what you think or what you believe, unless you've experienced it, don't judge, come and do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's step 1. But, I forgot my point. What were we talking about?
So I think the safety and the feeling of being embarrassed. Yeah. And so like you said before, when you come into our clinics, we're very specific. Everything that you come into encourages the authenticity within you.
It does.
And that's very specific.
And I felt that. I was like, oh, fuck, these are my people.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I literally thought, I've never felt this before, literally. I literally thought to myself, I've never felt this before. I felt so safe to just be myself. It was so noticeable.
Yeah. It's intentional and it's that acceptance. So you have to think about if we're working in your field and in your body and you're still armoured and feeling a lack of safety, how deep can I actually get in terms of unwinding, what we're working through in that tension pattern in the system? When we say tension patterns, things that have occurred in life outside of your tolerance, you've stored it in there for later, stress patterns, whatever you want to label it, whatever makes sense for you. You need safety, you need calmness, you need acceptance, and you need a feeling of unconditional love as, I know that sounds corny, but you need that sense so that the soul then feels able to express, the body feels able to express, and that there's no judgment. The problem with our society these days is that everyone is so quick to judge and without knowing much about anything.
Without knowing fucking jack shit about anybody.
Well, exactly. Even with my videos, I am aware that they do, strike a certain kind of conversation, which is, for me, I know I'm in the right place when people are questioning what I'm doing.
Yes.
That means that there's something that's getting challenged, that there's a perception
of
belief
the
system.
status quo.
Yeah, I love that, right? And challenging their beliefs that then they can live a better life, not just for the sake of being rebellious, but for the sake of questioning things and knowing that there's so much more to us than what we're presented with.
And which is exactly the point of this podcast, because I feel like confirmation bias is a real issue. When you only have your friendship circle at work and this and that, everyone tends to have the same beliefs. You never break out of that. When you're exposed to stuff, yes, initially it might trigger you, but it might also just knock one of the legs out of that belief table of yours. And then you're like, oh, maybe first you kick back at it, and then you're like, oh, fuck, maybe it could be true. And then you wait until you're in a bunch of pain and something's happening and you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll give it a go. But so...
Yeah, that's when people tend to come in.
Yeah, so which is always the greatest time. So stress patterns, right?
Yeah.
Give me an example. Someone who's watching, like, how would they know? Like, what is a stress pattern?
Look, stress isn't all bad either. I just want to start by saying that stress is natural. Stress is normal. We're supposed to experience it. What we're not supposed to experience is the level of stress and for how long we're feeling stressed.
Yes, it's the duration.
It's the duration.
Stuck in that state of being immobilized.
Correct. And it is also society driven. In the West, you know, we work a lot. We're success driven based on external factors. We're go.
Yeah.
And so we also don't really look at ourselves emotionally. There's certain, culture norms where you say, for example, as a woman, do not express anger. As a man, that's more acceptable.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of different
My
nurturing.
wife doesn't have that. She's Italian. She's Italian. She doesn't have that issue.
The Italians are passionate. But so that's the thing as well. It does depend on your cultural background and
100%.
your shaping about where you feel comfortable. What she might not feel comfortable expressing is something else, maybe more of a genuine vulnerability and sadness might be more of a challenge for her. So we all have these things and we all have stress. We all have tension. When it becomes an issue, though, is when it's starting to affect your day-to-day life and your body is still living as if it is experiencing something in the past still, or it's preempting something of the future that hasn't even occurred. It's not living in the present moment. And so when that's starting to occur, your body's communication, the energy that's flowing through the body is more of a reaction. It's more of a survival mechanism rather than actually living and living in alignment with who you are internally and then reflecting that in the external.
100%. I think a lot of times how you can tell when you've got like these traumas or things that are playing out from the past and playing out in the present is anytime you react, that is an above normal reaction. To me, it's like, okay, that just this is holding up a mirror that's triggering the same emotion or feeling that I've also felt in the past. Maybe a different circumstance, but maybe I felt like someone was shutting me down or someone was making me feel small. Completely different situation. And this, I flip out.
Yeah.
But in reality, what I'm actually flipping out to was the 10 other times that I felt like that when I was...
It's the accumulation.
It's the accumulation.
It's the build-up. And so what this does is by delayering and connecting to that, it's
like a valve that's kind of releasing the
100%.
tension that's blown up at that balloon that's just about to pop.
Yeah, it's like turning the temperature down. We're restoring coherence back into the system. We're restoring balance back into the system. And when you're balanced, how you will respond will be completely different to how you will respond if you're imbalanced. If you're already at a 9 or 10 in your
100%.
tolerance level and then something triggers a similar sensation to, whenever that might be, you're going to, exactly what you just said, respond in a much larger response. It's not contextual. So what we're looking for is the responses in the body that are actually contextual and relevant to the experience.
Yes.
And it can go the other way as well.
100%. Not overcompensating, but also not going into, which is more of that fight or flight response, which has more of that cortisol and adrenaline, which is more outward, as opposed to the fawn and freeze responses where we're locking up, where we're not being able to speak, we're avoiding and running away. I guess the running away is more of a flight, but that feeling of just, which I think a lot of men struggle with, which is that, and women for that matter, but just that freezing up and that locking up. And I think that's why people say stay stuck in businesses or careers or relationships that they know are not aligned. They know are not serving them. They don't do the work. They don't make any moves. And then dis-ease comes into the body and the body doesn't want to be in those states for long periods of time. So then...
And that's the purpose of Spinal, right?
Yes.
The purpose of Spinal is so that you hear that inner voice even louder. Now, that can be not very gratifying for someone who spent their whole life trying to ignore the elephant in the room and the elephant just became bigger, okay? So that's why there's some resistance to the work as well. But our goal is so that you don't...
No, there's people resist doing the work, do they? I had no...
They definitely do, and I don't blame them for it because they know themselves. Look, everything that we bring up in the session as well is not something that you don't know. I just want to reiterate that as well.
And I also want to say, I think if we go layers, okay, yes, step one, people resist doing the work because intuitively know they're going to feel some...
I resist it sometimes.
Me too, some type of pain, right?
But I think even more so than that, underneath, they resist the work because they know that if they get the intuitive download that they're going to get, you nailed it, that you have to fucking change. And people do not like change. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't for most people. Yeah. And I think it takes I had multiple guests yesterday, and a lot of them were speaking about like there's that one time or multiple times where the pain has to become greater. The pain of change, of not changing, has to become greater than the pain of staying the same. And a lot of people wait to get to that point, but you only have to. I had a guy on yesterday who literally got cancer from stress. Yeah. And, you know, you don't have to wait until your wife's left you, until, you know, you've got cancer, until you've had all of these things happen.
But that's what gives people the leverage usually to actually change is they have to be at the bottom. And, you know, by another thing.
And that's my question. Do they have to be at the bottom?
It's preferable if you're not at the bottom.
Don't wait till your whole life. You've lost every single thing you've ever owned or had in your life that's great until you, maybe I should do some work now.
Humans just, like you said, the familiarity is such a strong thing within us. So to change is actually really scary. It's the unknown is frightening. The uncertainty is frightening, but then the certainty is frightening as well if you were to stay the same. So, I always get my clients, what if you keep this pattern for the next 10, 15, 20 years?
The cost of inaction.
Yeah. What will your life look like? Do you want a life like that? And are you actually living in congruency with yourself, or is this, your parents, your friends, the culture, the society? What is it? And it is scary because most of all, at the end of the day, we all want to be loved and accepted for who we are. Yes. And if we were to leave a relationship, it's frightening. There has to be a belief there that maybe I won't find better. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe what if it doesn't exist? Yeah. So staying the same sometimes we're just so frightened about knowing ourselves and being with ourselves. And that's because we're communal creatures. But if we have the support like what we create in the clinics, the being by yourself and that introspection doesn't become so frightening anymore. In fact, once you've had it, you need it and you yearn for it because that's your guidance system to how you live.
I mean...
Oh, there we go.
There we go. There's the first one.
All right. Hope you're enjoying the podcast thus far. Just want to take a moment of your time to ask that in exchange for this amazing value and guests and hopefully some entertainment too, if you guys have liked it so far and you want to see more, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. At the end of the day, you can continue just to watch and all those type of things, but it does actually have an enormous impact on the level and quality of guests that I can have. And that just means better interviews for you guys. And it also means more impact in the world. The more men that can come across this channel and see this information and see the types of topics, the things that we're talking about, that can change another man's life. So if you've got value, pass it on. Pass on that value by hitting the subscribe button. With that said, guys, let's get back to the episode. Bye for now.
I mean, so good. Guys.
I feel great. So, I'm just going to go home now. We did it.
Just need a moment to pause for that because it's just so, it's just so true. I literally, because I just see so many people struggling, and I mean, I do it too. I'm so lucky to have a wife that's on, in a personal development journey. I'm so lucky to have met people like yourself and Pat and all of the other people that I've met over the years. To see this,
but
see
other
people do it. I definitely created it.
It's not just luck, it's creation.
It's definitely not luck. I've made some massively courageous decisions, opposed every other person in my life that thought the things I was doing were stupid or whatnot.
It's a good sign.
Yes.
To me.
Yes, because the perfect thing, I think it was Alex Mosey said that if you are someone who's different, that's a good thing because most people are overweight, they're unhealthy, they're getting divorced, they don't if you're different, I mean, you're winning. That's actually, that's a fantastic thing.
And the courage is winning. A lot of us, it's scary. We procrastinate, we sit on things because we don't know the outcome. Indecision. I give myself a time frame when it comes to making decisions now. I'm very specific on the time frame. I have to stick to it. Each decision might have a different time frame, but I'm very I have to make a decision by this point because we waste energy, and by wasting energy we're wasting, our life force, and our life force is what creates the momentum to change in the first place. You need energy within you to create change. And so that's why this work is exceptional for a whole bunch of different reasons. Some people use it as a self-development tool, a mindset tool. We have athletes who use it to, prevent injury as well as keep them in that real focus state easier. We have people from, emotional trauma backgrounds who have tried, more traditional therapies, but their body is still keeping,
the body keeps the score.
Keeping the score. We all love Essel van der Kolk's book. And still holding those things that are reflecting in their life, creating pain or discomfort, or they haven't found the answers in Western medicine and they're looking for something else, or it can be a whole range of reasons. Or they just see a video and think, what the fuck is that? I've got to give it a shot. So that's actually quite a common one too.
So obviously you weren't always doing this, right? If we were to kind of back pre-spinal energetics, you've also got a degree, right? You're a chiropractor.
Yeah.
So that led you towards understanding the nervous system, understanding how the nervous system impacts all of these types of things. But you were practicing as a chiropractor?
Yeah. So my story's a bit interesting. I started off in psychology originally. Okay, awesome. So I was always very interested in human beings and the mind. Yes. Why are we the way we are? I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people live the life that they deserve to live instead of holding themselves back. But the traditional psychology model didn't quite fit for me. It was very diagnostic and very, that something's wrong with you. And I felt that wasn't an empowering place to be. And if you looked at why people were if you looked at the reason why people were the way that they were, is usually things occurred in life that created that response. It wasn't just a random occurrence. So I wanted to look more into context. So I also went and studied philosophy, world religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, yoga, meditation, holistic counselling. Then I went and did chiropractic, but I knew I was always going to practice different kind of chiropractic. We called it tonal chiropractic. There's a few different techniques out there, from network spinal, which is Con, who you saw, to SOT, to BGI, which are these low force tonal systems working with the system, specifically the spine and the connections within that, and then the reflections of how that then appears in life. So I always knew I was going to be a different kind of chiro. Started off in the network space, and again, like you said, there's a similarity, but it feels very different. Spinal energetics has a much more energetic component to it. We're working off the body majority of the time. We're in the field majority of the time. Why? Because we know that the further out off the body you are, the deeper you are actually working in terms of that person's soul level. So there's a reason for everything that we're doing. It does look like the person's randomly moving on the table, but in fact, it's quite a specific pattern. Or almost like they're like a paid actor. I seriously think people... I've been told that.
Well, I don't remember if I told you this story, but when I first saw it, I just literally had a client that kind of said, hey, you should try this thing. I know you're into blah, blah, blah. And I was really, I don't know what was happening, but there was a whole lot of stuff that happened for a long time, and I don't know which one it was, but I was not in a good place. And she said, just go and do this thing. And at the time, I was not open-minded to anything that was spiritual, because I'd kind of grown up in the church and I just thought spiritual stuff was mindset. Hee-ha, hoo, personal development, Tony Robbins. I knew all about subconscious mind. But so I'm going in and he basically like put his finger on my back and touched my back. And then he's like, can you feel that? He's like, can you see my hand? Okay, cool, yep. And then he goes, okay, you can face down again. And he kept, he goes, can you still feel my finger? Can you still feel my finger? I'm like, yeah. He goes, now turn around. His hand was this fucking far off my back. And at that moment I thought, he must have hypnotized me. He must, there was no way that my mind was going to believe that was.
People ask that a lot.
That was real. I thought, when I came in, I remember he touched me on the back, or he gave me a hug. I've seen someone like make people cluck like chickens on the stage from like doing like a specific, and I thought that's what he did to me, because that was more believable to me. So I understand what people...
Well, you're not completely far off in the sense that we are working with the unconscious, all right, like hypnotherapy would be. We're working with the unconscious mind, the 95% of you that you're not aware of. And we're also changing the brainwave state. So we're changing the state of consciousness.
But what I mean was, he wasn't tricking me to think that I was having a memory that wasn't... of course, I know that to be true now, because I kept coming back, because what I'm saying is that I was so far away. I was just so desperate. That I've tried psychology, I've tried everything else, I tried the new naturopath, I tried everything. And I'm like, well, everything that I knew at the time. Like I didn't know about breath work, I didn't know about all the other things, modalities I've done now, but it was just like, it was so far away from, I can tell you right now, if I probably had seen it on the video at the time where how stiff my mind was, there's no way I would have thought this is paid actors. So I can relate to what people are saying.
I understand it too. And even my brain, and I do the work sometimes, I'm still, I still
How is this possible?
Yeah, I still, because it's from what we're taught to believe what is possible, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, logical.
From a matter level, it doesn't make sense. You have to look at it from
experiential
or from a more of a spiritual understanding. Because some people say, yeah, we're working on the soul. That's why we go deeper. Someone else is like, soul? Like, that's not real. What's a soul? It's like, when you're so deep into a journey, you just forget that someone else doesn't know that there's a soul, or doesn't believe in intuition, or doesn't.
And on that note, I just want to say, you don't have to have a specific belief system to come and experience the benefits of this work. You don't have to be open. You don't have to. You have to be.
Well, I wasn't believing when I didn't. It worked for me.
But I want you to be willing to come and make your own appointment and take responsibility, all that kind of thing as well. But my job's not to prove people wrong. But once they feel the connection, it changes.
It's undeniable.
It's undeniable. It's so tangible, and it changes everything, because then they start questioning everything in their life. What am I having such a strong belief in that's not even real?
And it's not even serving me. When I first started my online, not when I first started, but one of the programs I was running a few years ago was called The Confident Leader. And I had a one-day event prior to a 12-week course. And the one-day event was just teaching him this stuff. And then I did a breathwork session, because I knew this. If I don't do a breathwork session on day one, they're not going to be open to anything else. The number one thing that I have to do to make sure that this program works is I need to get them out of here and into here. And there's no talking that's going to get them there in such a short period of time. Yep. And to this day, people all said that one day thing was just the most amazing thing that ever. And it's just like, okay, sure, I talked for a bunch of hours and that was awesome. I taught them about subconscious mind, but the breath work is what made them trust me for the rest of the program, because it's the same thing with the spinal, and that's what Pat and I talked about yesterday: meditation, spinal, breath work, all of these modalities. Even if you're not a believer, if you do it, you'll get out of your head, you'll have an experience, and then that's something. It's like you can tell someone
shifts after that.
You can tell somebody what a mango tastes like on a hot summer's day. But until you fucking have one, you're not going to know the flavour of it, how juicy is it, and all, as a silly example.
No, it's not a silly. It is experienced, and my goal with Spinal is we've created it so it is for someone of the West, so they get something tangible for that rational and for that logical mind quite quickly, and they see the changes quite quickly in the transformation. It's not like therapy
where you do. And again, I'm not going to poo-poo therapy, but it's one type of tool. I personally, from my experience, have found with myself and with clients that more somatic work, especially for men who struggle to open up, that getting them to do an experiential type exercise rather than a talk therapy type exercise, you can just shortcut yourself like years.
Well, because they have to be willing to share what they want to share in a talk therapy session,
which can take a long time.
And also, maybe they're not comfortable sharing it with or verbalizing it.
Yes.
But they're a lot more comfortable sitting and lying on a table.
Because you don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say anything.
You don't have to talk at all.
No, you don't have to talk at all. And at times, people do come. Because of my background, they'll come and they do want to have a chat, and that's okay too. But in terms of spinal energetics as a purest modality, it is specific with the body, and it's specific with the body that we unwind and unlock things that you don't have to re-experience by unwinding and unlocking.
Yes.
So you might be experiencing an emotional release, you might be crying, but you won't know why. And the reason we do that is so that you don't have to then re-traumatize or re-engage in that experience to the point where you have to relive it to release it. That's not it either.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. When we do talk therapy for a certain period of time, I noticed that people started coming in saying the same thing. Over and over again, they're saying the same thing 5 years later. There has to come a point where the verbalization and the story has a place. It really does. But then let's actually shift it into your actual consciousness and into the now too.
Well, you just made a perfect point, and I learnt this from doing not just the coaching but sales as well. Yeah. Right? You can he who holds the bigger truth wins is something that Ryan Madges taught me. Who's coming on today.
I actually
as well.
don't know Ryan. I follow him on Instagram.
So Mr. Ryan Magic, he was one of my first coaches back in the day, business coach.
Lovely hair.
Lovely hair. Unlike me. I've got no hair.
You've got lovely other things.
Exactly. So specifically, what did you say?
I don't know what I said. I'm still thinking about Ryan's hair right now.
That's what you distracted me. I started to get this image. You got two people. So that's what it is. He who holds the bigger truth wins. So it's one of those things where what I learned from sales is when you're talking to someone's head and that you're having a conversation with their head, which is what a lot happens in talk therapy, you're talking to their ego.
Yeah, not their heart.
Not their heart. If you talk to the ego, there's so many matrices inside your head, and your head knows you better than anybody else. So that talking is just constantly incessant. And if you talk to a therapist or anybody on that matter on a sales call, if you try to get someone to take action from that place, it's just met with another reason. It's just reasonality everywhere.
Constant resistance.
As soon as you can drop someone, if I have a client and I'm thinking, fuck, this is going to be a long session, and they're just yapping away, which is this fine, I just and like close your eyes. They go, no. They know what's coming. Yeah. Close your fucking eyes.
Yeah.
And I just close your eyes, do 3 deep breaths. I'll cut them off because otherwise they're going to ruin their own session.
Yeah.
I'll just,
But you're there to guide them, and it's for a reason.
And they trust me. So I'll take them down and I'll just breathe, and then we'll just ask them questions to this place. And I get them to visualize going down to their gut. And I can, in 30 seconds, we're having transformative, deep conversations. I spent years talking to this part and trying to convince them. I had 3-hour coaching sessions because I'd be like back and forth and trying to tell them about all of the subconscious mind and this and that. It's like, dude, just shut your fucking eyes, bro.
It doesn't resonate with the words. It doesn't work that way. It's like even when you purchase a home, for example,
you're just battling each other.
It's the emotional response you get when you walk in the home that makes you want the house.
It's not the features. You don't sell the boat, you sell the island.
Yeah, it's how it makes people feel.
Yes.
And Spinal's no different as well. The technique is a completely beautiful form of artistry. There's no doubt about it, but I always teach all my practitioners as well. One of the most important things is the creation of that space for the person to feel that they can emotionally connect with you as a human being, that they can tell that you don't have your mask on. How on earth can you work on someone in a non-egoic way if you're bringing your ego? It doesn't make sense.
You're projecting, you're masking. And like I said, that's what I noticed. I just walked into the space. And again, by the way, this is not a paid promotion. This is just
here. Take the $50, Scott.
You can check there's no wide transfers.
No.
It's just. I'm trying to share the things that have really worked for me. Like I love my life. I'm so proud of who I am today, and I've been every type of bad person as well before. So it's like this stuff really, really, really helped me. So you're doing Spinal now.
Yeah.
You did psychology. So you've done a lot of not just this stuff, but if anyone was to ever judge, you've got all of this other back story of education and certification around these types of things.
To a degree.
Yeah, because I think it gives
some legitimacy to the work.
Legitimacy, validity, and just makes people trust. And I think the trust part is a part of that space. It's like, okay, if you're, again, nothing against this type of person, but if you're living out in the bush and you're running a ceremony and it's doing that, I don't think you would have the same expansion that you're having right now with 3 locations and now a training.
This is our school where we're at now.
School, yeah. So like how many people have you had? I mean, you only just started it more recently, but how many people have you had that's kind of come through the school so far?
So for practitioner-wise, we released in June last year and we've almost got 400 practitioners now, and we're very particular.
That's a fucking movement.
Yeah, it's a movement, and we've rejected a lot of people. Because we're quite particular about maintaining the integrity of the work. It's really, really important.
It goes back to what you were saying before. It's not just about having the technique.
No,
it's about embodying the what's required to create the space for what the technique is used for.
And that's who the best practitioners are. The best practitioners are the ones who are doing the work in their daily lives, the ones who have experienced so much sessions within Spinal themselves that they know what the client's going through and how to hold space for it. They're not scared, they're not fearful. And the number one thing I must say about all of my practitioners is they are very authentically themselves. That's what I do really believe Spinal does. It creates a space for you to be who you really are. And when you are who you really are, you're giving permission to everyone around you to be who they really are, and the world is just a far more beautiful place when we can just be that, the real part, not the nonsense, bullshit 100%. That we all carry around. Like
we
it's
sat
ridiculous.
down after a session. There was me and I think there was two
we did a group?
2 other people.
Yeah,
and I don't know why we did it, but you said, "Oh, what's one word to describe me?" And I said, "Permission."
I was talking about myself in the session. That sounds accurate, doesn't it?
Yes. hey guys, what's one thing to tell me? And I said, we were talking about other things as well, but
good,
I said permission, and I think the fact that you can see in everything that spinal energetics is and what you've created that's really just radiates through what you're doing, because it's really an extension of you. So it's like your belief systems of what you believe is required in order to have people from, like you said, athletes, entrepreneurs, mums, dads,
everyone,
kids, adults. It's like that's what's required to make it unreasonable not to heal.
Exactly. And we want to make things, we want it easier for people.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to make it harder for them. We want to create a space where they can come, they can just let everything go.
Do you ever have like tradies or anything like that come in?
Yeah, we have tradies. And the thing is, we're getting more and more men now. When I first started, it was more female clients. Yes. And then the men that came in were usually, you know, encouraged by their partners or family members.
And then that man tells some other man, and then...
Yeah, and we create an environment where we adapt to the person in front of us as well. So if someone doesn't want to talk about spirituality, someone doesn't want to talk about it, we don't. We adapt it to where they are at, and then we reach conversations like that if it's necessary at the time. But what makes spinal, I guess, accessible for everyone is the tangible feeling that people feel after. So a tradie, a real, you know, straight, you know, 180 kind of person perception-wise, they can't deny the difference in how they feel after the session.
And so it's like a drug. You want more.
They want more, and what they want is more of themselves, because we're not doing anything to them. It's not an external process. It's an internal process.
You're taking the layers off. It's like you're taking the masks off, and then it feels good to be yourself.
Well, what a relief.
Yeah.
What a relief to actually, you know. What a relief.
This is me being myself, by the way. My wife said, you're just like a kid in a candy store. And I'm like, I'm going to be
I'm just going to press this one. There we go. I don't know.
That was lame. I'm going to press this one. And then just
imagine it blew up. This was the wrong button.
One more.
Oh.
And now we'll tell a story.
I felt that. Yeah, nothing wrong being a kid. Be curious. Have some fun. Life's hard. Let's just enjoy it.
With that said, let's talk about some more serious things.
Okay.
Let's get into the serious shit.
I'm ready.
So I would love to get your advice or your take. You're a woman. You've been around the world. You've done these different modalities. You've worked with men and women. Mm-hmm. The show's called Make Men Great Again. Yeah. Right. It's not to say that we don't want to make women great as well. It's that I personally believe that women are getting shortchanged at the moment from men who are stuck in patterns. Now, it's not shaming the men. No. I'm saying that I think that when men are great, that women get the best versions of men, not the men that every this toxic masculinity stuff. Yeah. I'm talking about the men that there are so many great men out there. And for me, I've acted like a real see you next Tuesday many, many times in my life, and people judge me for that. And like, including my family, you know, and I always was this beautiful person that I am now inside, but because I had so many fucking issues and so much pain,
wasn't able to be expressed.
I was not able to. I was so reactive, and so I just did not cope in the world. And so I really feel like I have a lot of empathy and maybe see things a little differently to other people because I've been that person.
Yeah. And it does make you a bad person. We all have parts of that within each of us.
Which is my entire point. Did I act badly? Yes, but that's the point. Act. It's an action.
Don't tie the action to the person themselves.
It's not who I am. And I realized as I disconnected from who I thought I was, because I thought this is like, you know, I knew intuitively inside it I'm not this person, but I didn't know how to stop. And it wasn't until I did all of this healing, which is why I'm so passionate about sharing this. And I work with women, I've worked with men, but the reason why I focus on men is because I truly believe, number one, there's a lot of people already helping women, but I truly believe that
this is your niche, though. This is what's happened for you in your journey.
This is what's happened for me. This is what I know that I can comment on. I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
What I do know is I've seen the transformation in my wife's life by me being a man.
By me being a great better man can only make the women around you better as well, and vice versa.
Which is my whole point. And so what, in your perspective, do we need to do? Like, what do you think about making men great again? Do you believe that that's a noble thing to be doing? Do you sign off on that? What do you think that men need to do? You've worked with men and women. What do women need? Can what do men need to do in order to be their best self? Like, you go ham on just whatever you just want to share. What are your beliefs on this?
Look, for me specifically, even the difference in response I get from men now compared to the response I got from men, say, 15 years ago. So I'm single now. I was married. I was with my ex-partner for 14 years. He's a beautiful human.
Yep.
Shout out to Damien. We love him immensely.
Damo.
He's still one of my best friends. And that's another thing that people can't really grasp, that, when I unconditionally loved him, I chose to unconditionally love him forever. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be together in a relationship, but
I believe
he's a person in my life who I'll love. Now, where do men go wrong? I've noticed in regards to my own experiences, I can only comment on that, and is, for me, they struggle dating someone who works in a certain way, someone who maybe earns more money than them financially seems to be a very large problem that I've encountered. It challenges something within them.
Okay, let's talk about that. I mean, I was thinking about it. I already know the answer. You arrogant fuck. No, I already know the answer.
Control.
But
it's egoic control, where I understand men need to feel like they're providing, but there's more than just a financial way to provide. There's other ways to provide for the person that you're around as well.
Perfect point. So this is what I believe. I don't believe necessarily that it's egoic control, but I could imagine how a woman might feel like that. What I feel like is it's more about being insecure.
Oh, 100%.
That's the bigger play. I'm not saying that some men it's control. There are men out there and there are women out there.
But they're only controlling because they're insecure anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes off as, I guess this is where I feel like it comes off as a controlling behavior.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it comes from a deep sense of insecurity. And this is where these old school male labels come from. You have to be the provider. I think personally, if you look at from my experience and the books that I've read, like David Deaver and whatnot, I believe that for a relationship to thrive, that there are certain gender roles that are healthier. If communicated, 90% of the population, David Eder says, is 90% feminine, 10% masculine, and 90% in vice versa, and it's 10% of the population that are like 50-50 and both energies in them. And so he kind of shares that if you want a relationship to thrive, you're going to best be in your natural essence more
100%.
of the time. My wife's very successful, and I encourage that, and I think that's the sign of a real man, where you can actually handle that. I don't think that it makes you I think that's where doing the work, like that, there was a time where I shut down a big portion of my business at the end of last year to do this, knowing this is the long play. So right now, I mean, I'm the CEO of our company. We're 50-50 partners. But if we want to be specific about it, my ego for months felt very uncomfortable insecure about the fact that her business was making more money than my business. We own both the businesses.
Yeah.
But my ego and I started to notice that I was being more short with her. Yeah. And I started to notice that I also noticed, by the way, that she was being short with me. She doesn't feel as safe when I'm not the one.
Yeah.
So over the last...
I was going to touch on that as well. As a woman, I want to feel safe with you, that you can look after me. What if I can't, go to work for 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I want to know that I can rely upon you to be able to hold, that situation down. And not just that, your decisions. I want to be able to trust your decisions. I want to be able to trust your judgment. I want to ask your advice on things and be able to trust it and work with that. And I just find that, I think men sometimes want someone who doesn't challenge them, someone who can make life a little bit simpler for them so that they don't have to look at themselves at a deeper level and they can stay comfortable. Whereas any partner, whether man, woman, you want a bit of discomfort. You want to be challenged.
I actually, I've got a relationship coach that I'm interviewing later, and she's the person that helped me find my partner. I literally sat there with a pen and paper.
You wrote it down.
Wrote it down, and she was... I mean, I'm going to go a little bit out here right now, but and be honest and vulnerable. But she was like, I had been like starved sexually in my previous
You're not alone in that though,
relationship, and it wasn't my partner's fault. It was both of us. We weren't a polarity match
that way.
I was probably more still struggling with my masculinity in that relationship, because she had had some challenges with. Her parents, and so she was probably more masculine, because as for people who don't know, when a woman is not feeling safe to be in
they
her
become
feminine.
more masculine.
They become masculine. This is where you see in marriages where the guy says the quote, happy wife, happy life, you just shot your marriage down the drain, because every time that, you're just letting her or giving her the pants because you can't be fucked being a leader, and it's just easier that way. My wife and I fight all the time, and it's fun and it's playful and I love it.
But we want you to lead.
I know that's my point.
So much, like even
if you tell me I want to make, a lot of men think, well, she always changes what I want and she doesn't listen. She's testing you to see, will you buck the fuck up?
And we do test. I do have to be honest. As a woman, we do test.
Are you the man that you say you are? My wife famously said when I first date, we were walking down the beach and she dated a few guys and she wanted to find someone and anyway, long story short, I was saying all these things and she was like, I said, look, I'm different. I'm not like every other guy. I even told her I've just broken up out of a 5-year engagement like a month ago, and she goes, I wouldn't be telling that to people on other dates. And I'm like, well, this is who the fuck I am.
Yeah, you owned it.
And if you can't take that, then you're not for me.
Yeah, good on you, Scotty.
But anyway, I said, no, I'm different, and she said, yeah, we'll see. And so now every year, all the time I go, and I know we've got a fantastic relationship. And I go, yeah, we'll see, huh? Yeah, we fucking saw.
Well, because we want to make sure that you're embodying what you're saying, and that goes for women too. But we want to know that 3-4 months from now, you're actually still that person.
You're not just doing this just to get in bed. You're not just doing this just to ego show me that this is that. Can you really be there? And that comes from a primal place of wanting to know whether you want to have kids or not. This is in the primal DNA coding
Can
of
I rely on
humans.
this person for that?
Can this person provide for me if I have a child? Can they keep me safe? Yes, we're much more safe than we used to be back in the day, but this stuff's in our DNA, and I think a lot of men, a big problem, especially in relationships, is that it's just easier. The woman might get a little bit argumentative, or she doesn't feel safe because of, let's say he said he was going to take out the trash. He thinks it's just the trash.
No, it's much bigger.
In reality,
it's words.
In reality,
words and actions.
You said you were going to do something, you
didn't do it.
And as crazy as that might seem to you men watching, that makes her feel very unsafe because, well, we
can't trust you. You're telling us we can't trust you.
Women are less logical. They're not as logical. They're more emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually the beautiful part. That's why they're also so loving and such great parents and whatnot.
Yeah.
But when they feel unsafe, then they're gonna go, if you're not going to be the man, I'll be the man, and that's when you start to see, the argumentative things happen. That's when you start to see, there's I don't like using the word toxic, but if you just Google masculine femininity, you can see there's grounded masculine, grounded feminine, and then there's also, I think they call it ungrounded, wounded.
I think wounded.
Wounded is the word.
Wounded.
And there's a whole list of things that men do, which can be control, which can be aggression, and there's a whole list of things, and we all do them. I just did it recently. I'm a fucking human. Get over it, but look at the principles that are there. Yeah. So do you agree with things that I just shared? Have you noticed that within your own life?
Definitely. And, I myself want to be more feminine. I think I have a feminine energy, very much so. But, during the day I have to be more masculine. So when I come home, I don't want to make decisions. I want you to make the decisions for me because I've been doing it all day. You know, I want you to add to my life. I want you to make my life easier.
Yes, yes.
And
I don't want to come home and you feel insecure about such and such.
Not at all.
Yes.
And, the other thing, though, that I'm noticing now more so is it's more of an era thing is commitment. Men, they think longer about commitment, what they commit to. Men
are afraid.
They're so afraid.
But I mean, I think there's a just reason for men to be afraid. Because I truly, if you look at women are becoming much more masculine, and it's scary to be a man in society these days because people get shamed. Okay, this guy was looking at me, my ass in the gym. Yeah, I mean, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
Your ass looks great. He shouldn't be perving on you. He should be doing anything. I'm not saying it's your fault, but I'm just saying, these things, if a guy is walking around and he's really buff and he looks fantastic, I've got lots of girlfriends. She'll be like, look at the bulge in that guy's pants, or hey, look at that guy's great arms, with that great abs. There's no shame around being attracted to somebody else. Where it gets creepy is if you're creeping on them. I'm not saying that you should do that, but I think a lot of men are afraid. If you look at what happens in 50% of divorce, I think is the divorce rate, and a lot of men feel like they work. Well, this is right or wrong. It's just a feeling. It's their belief system, whether programmed or not, that if I make this business and I have this thing,
she'll stay. She'll be happy. Yeah.
Well, no, they're afraid that they're going to end up having that happy wife, happy life situation. They're going to lose their freedom. Men want freedom. Women want love. And I think that's very scary for men to lose freedom because they don't know how to communicate effectively. Yeah. They don't know how to understand what a feminine woman needs, or especially if a woman who's action taking during the day. Yeah. Like my wife or like you. Yeah. How to bring them back into that feminine. Yeah. So what are some ways, like if people are watching this right now that either want to have a relationship, maybe they want a powerful woman like I wanted. That's what I designed. I said, I want an entrepreneur because we want to travel the world. This is what I'm going to be doing with my life. I don't want someone who's got 9 to 5 that can, that's going to stop me from having the freedom I want to have. Yeah. So I designed that. I wanted that. Maybe someone didn't want that, but they're with someone who's now a powerhouse. How can they soften her? How can they be more
building
of a leader?
Trust. Exactly what you said, building the trust from the small things, from keeping your word when you say you're going to do it. Yep. The trust of being, loyal to your partner. Yes. The trust of knowing that when you go to work that you can maintain the finances and not waste money or not do things like that. It's pure trust, because I need to be able to trust you in a whole bunch of different areas, emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually, for me to feel fulfilled.
And it's one of those things where I was literally talking to my dad about all of this stuff, and because I could see he had no fucking clue, and I was like, Dad, like these are some things that women need, and these are some things that are not going to work, and when you don't, and I could just see his face. He's like, so I got to do all those things. Yeah. I thought that I could just get married, I can just be a provider. I build the stuff out the back. I clean the pool. I do the old school manly things. And I know I've worked with men. A lot of men feel like that. They feel like they have no fucking idea how to do any of that stuff.
It is hard, and it's hard. Men are a little bit more predictable. Yes. So, for example, I can
very predictable.
Yeah, I can do something for you, and I'll get a similar response each time. Right? So I can read you a little bit easier. With women, you might do the same thing 3 times to get a completely different response.
Depending on what state that she's in.
Depending on what state. But for women, even, going back to sexual connection, we're wired differently in that way as well. And to say that we're wired the same is incorrect. We're different. We're wired different. But for me, I need the mental stimulation and the emotional stimulation to then feel sexually attracted to you. Yes. And especially at 37, the kind of relationships that I want sexually are very different to the relationship I would have wanted at 20. I want a meaningful connection. Yes. And I think that's what we should really all be looking for, meaningful, unconditional connections with people that we can share life with and enjoy life with. We're meant to have a partner. We're meant to, grow together and love and all these things. It's not about being perfect, but it's about maintaining your responsibility for your part in the relationship. And I think, and that goes both ways. I've seen,
from my own personal experience, and again, I went through a whole thing of realizing that, I realized I'm part, I can't blame my ex. I'm part of the problem with when the sex stuff broke down. And that's why I sought Camille to do it. I'm like, there's got to be something that I'm doing here that's not gelling. And so I learned about the masculine and femininity stuff, but I also learned a lot about the safety stuff. And I even know in my own relationship, if my sex life's good, it's usually because my wife's seeing me. I'm doing what I call the 4 Ps. I'm on purpose. I'm giving her presents. I'm providing. And to your point, you said it perfectly. Somebody else said the other day as well. It doesn't. I think it was David. I'm rereading the book again. It doesn't have to be financial. It's best if it is.
I like financial providers.
Nobody. I think no woman. I think who wants to be in her feminine is doing the work and understands what we're talking about. Isn't overly. Like a feminism without consciousness.
Yeah. You've got to have the balance.
You've got to have the consciousness. No one doesn't want to be provided for, but you also want to have the freedom to also make your own money and things like that. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where I notice when I'm doing those 4 Ps: presence, purpose, protection, and
protection's a huge one.
Provision.
Actually,
she knows when I get riled up, my wife's like, she gets excited. She sees me, she's like, no one's going to fuck with us. This guy's not mucking around. One time a car nearly hit us and I flipped out at this guy on the road. And she feel safe. She was like, wow, that's that masculine presence.
A little bit, with the protection. Like, if I'm in dire straits, who am I going to call? And that person that comes to my mind, they're the reliable people. They're the real people. They're the protective people. And they're the men that can hold space for you. Yes. And not only for you, but for themselves. How is the man living in his own life? What's he doing with his own work? What's he hiding away from in his own work? If he can't face his own stuff.
It's actually a great.
How's he going to help me face mine and hold space for me? And so what are you doing?
I think it's a great point. I'd love to dig into that a little bit because a lot of men struggle with vulnerability. From a women's perspective, what is your take on that? Because from me,
there's a fine line with that though too.
That's what I think. Yeah. I think if you're sobbing and playing the victim, then you're going to look like a weak pussy, and that's not going to be attractive. That's not vulnerable. That's not vulnerable, right? Yeah. It's just complaining and being a victim versus. Versus what I've seen is when I'm actually facing my shit. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, it's going to get hot and heavy in that moment. What I am saying is that she can feel safe that you're actually progressing. It's even if you're not perfect right now, I think it makes, from my experience in my relationships and seeing clients, that's something that makes them feel safe.
Yeah. So, we want to see that you're working on yourself as well.
And so what is that fine line of, because I think a lot of men don't know where that line is, how much is vulnerable and how much is actually, how much is attracting and making them feel safe versus how much is actually making her repel her by actually getting into wounded feminine energy.
Yeah, and look, there is a fine line, but for me, the vulnerability I look for is actual real meaningful expression of how you're feeling and what you're experiencing in your life. Meaningful, authentic.
So give us an example.
Like, for example, this, I was speaking to a friend about this the other day. So, like, even men trying to ask you out on a date is odd these days. But when they do, they say, like, they give you very physical things. Like, you're very beautiful. Yeah. I'd love to take you out. Babe, like beauty, rah, rah, rah. Like, it's all, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yes.
What means something to me is 3 months down the track and you look at me and you know me, you know who I am, and you say, like, you have one of the most beautiful people that I've ever met. That has a completely different connotation.
So that's 3 months later, but what could, if and we're not giving anyone any specific tips how to pick Ceci up on the street.
Yeah, that's going to be my Instagram's blowing up.
You've got people lining up going, hey, I heard on a podcast, you're just giving you this just line after line after line.
But be who you are, be authentic. But in terms of that vulnerability, we want to know that you're still the man. We don't want to have to look after you. That's something I don't want to do, right? I don't want to look after you emotionally all the time when I'm looking after people emotionally. Yeah, no one wants that.
Neediness is not
attractive.
And by the way, I'm a recovering neediness. Like I can tell you, like anyone says anything to me, I know I've been the opposite. I've been the needy, like overly loving, like just what's the word?
Smothering. We've all done
anxiously,
that.
Like dude, if I can change anyone in this world can change. So don't be smothering, don't be needy. But okay, so what does that look like? People say, be authentic, be this, be that. Like, give me an example of someone who's done it right. Have you had anyone who's done it right?
I've had people who've done it right in the sense where they're confident in who they are as a person.
Yeah.
When they know themselves and they have no shame about anything of who they are or what they are, and they're improving themselves and they're willing to look at themselves and wanting to be a better human being, then you can't really go wrong. And at times maybe it's a timing thing, or maybe there's just a certain spark that's just not felt between you two, and that's okay as well. But when it's predictable, picking up behavior, no actual individuality to it, no actual depth to it, no actual nuance between, taking, that initiative with actual grace, then we're not really interested.
I don't even think I met my wife on Bumble. And I got my mate Nev, shout out to Nev. He met his wife on Bumble.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a dating app.
I actually think, of course, it's like anything. Like, I look at this is going to sound fucking terrible. Dude, this is going to sound terrible. Someone's going to clip this up and make me sound like a complete chauvinistic asshole. But I'm going to say it anyway. It's like, because I'm neurodivergent and I need to make formats of things. In sales and marketing.
God, he's putting Bumble with sales and marketing.
It's like a funnel.
It's a click funnel.
It's like not a click funnel. It's like a funnel. There's at the
Oh,
top.
no.
the
I know
bigger
the funnel. I've had this explained.
It's bigger. I'm just making it up as we go.
Is this the relationship funnel, the funnel
No.
you'd like to sleep with funnel, and a friend funnel?
No. I'm just making this up as just as a perception right now. The way I see it is like people talk bad about apps and say, oh, well, apps these days have ruined relationships. Yeah, if you're the type of person who only wants meaningless stuff and just flicks through, then you're just going to get what you're putting out, right?
It's not the tool's fault. It's how people utilize the tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the way you look at the tool is that naturally you're not going to just go on 2 dates and meet your dream person. It's like a funnel. There's a bunch of people that's at the top of the funnel on the dating app.
Yeah.
Certain people you don't flick through. Look at your eyes.
Yep. There's a few frogs out there.
And then, but then you'll have the next part of the funnel is that you'll have a few DMs.
Yeah.
Then a few people will pass that part of the funnel. They're getting, okay, now you're having a few phone calls.
But there's no
then
different in real life, too.
That's kind of like my point is like, if you're not willing to chat to 50 people, you're never going to find the one.
No. And you've got to go through, there's some quantity involved, just like
That's why I like the app, because I've never walked up to a girl in the street in my entire life.
That, Scott. I have to say that. I'm going to pull you up
I
on
had
that.
a lot of issues with women growing. I was so petrified. I had this thing that I called the first kiss phobia. And I was many a time where I should have kissed a girl and just fucking pussied out.
No, so I'm going to pull you up, okay? So one thing I do dislike about this era is that men don't have the courage to come up to a woman anymore. Like I can go out and they just stare. I had a man pat me on the head the other week. He just looked at me and he didn't know what to do and he comes up and he literally did this.
There you go.
And I turned around and I said, what was that about? And he goes, I didn't know what to say. And so I gave you a pat.
Do you know what's actually worked though? Is a backwards kick up the bum if you're standing next to someone. But that only works at the bar.
No.
That only works at the bar.
No, Scott.
That only works at the bar.
That's not working. No one
At
listen
3
to that.
a.m.
No. But why don't you go up to someone, like, have some confidence about yourself and show us that you're someone worth getting to know and not just hide behind a screen as well. And I'm not saying dating apps aren't what they are.
I
but
get what you're saying.
Come up to me in person.
I think that.
Don't just stare at me and pat my head.
Do you know what happened? You're a kind soul. If you do that to, I don't know the statistics.
No, this is true.
I don't know the statistics, but do you know what?
Women can be mean.
Women can be mean, and there's nothing that's rejection is so painful, especially for a man. Yes, men have egos. Who gives a shit, right? That's how a lot of men, until they've done the work, which takes a bit of time and effort. Yeah, how you get your sense of self is built, and for a lot of men, it's built on a certain self, and when that self gets what's the word, like bounced or
touched on. Yeah.
It gets poked and
activated.
Cracked. That doesn't feel safe for a man. So it feels it's too much to face, especially in public, getting shot down. There's shame, there's rejection, there's embarrassment.
But we want it, like, to a degree. Like, so I know
from the right person.
From the right person. And so you have to read the room, guys. You have to read the room, guys.
Yeah.
Like, is this, but if you actually see someone and you think, like, I actually really want to go talk to her, this could be something, give it a go, because she's going to be gone and then the moment's gone. You just don't know. So I actually respect men that come up to me and actually try to have an actual genuine conversation. Except for if they pat
you on the head.
Yeah, but that wasn't.
It's better than a pat on the bum.
It was better than a pat on the bum, but that wasn't anything. And a lot of the other time they just stare at you. And
because
they're
genuinely, it's generally so scary. Very few men pull off the walk up to a person in the. It's just
really.
I can't imagine that'll become.
The thing.
The only people that do that are the
Probably
again, not
you don't want
being
to come up to you,
or the people are the weirdos who are reading that. Remember that book, The Game, and they're like negging you. Hey,
yeah.
You're cute, but your hair's so shit.
That's okay. So that's another thing I want to touch on that men do as well. And I'm not saying all men. I'm sure women do it as well. But there's
Here we go. Break out the pad and pen.
There's a put down culture. So I've noticed it when I go out with someone, they'll be like, yeah, you look all right tonight. Instead of saying like, hey, like you look incredible tonight. I'm really excited for tonight. Let's go out. They'll be like, oh, yeah, you could have done this a bit different. Or like there's this.
Well, that's the fastest way to make yourself feel more to increase your own status is to pull someone down. And so, like I said, like for me, I'm a very confident person now. But in the past, I wasn't confident. So I used DJing, I used modeling, I used being a business owner as ways to project confidence because inside I was fucking petrified. And I was so afraid that somebody would find out.
Yeah.
I was like absolutely absolutely petrified. So I needed those egoic external things like money or status or all these things. I couldn't even fathom. And I think a lot of men and my friends, like it got to the point where even people thought that I was gay at one point in my early 20s because they were like, this guy just doesn't pick up any chicks.
Oh,
and
no.
Here am I, and it was like, oh, he's the good looking one in the group and he dresses well. And I was like, that, it was just. I get what you're saying.
It's an energy thing though too, right? So
I understand everything logically. The experience that I had was absolute panic attack.
Well, I'm sorry for that.
Well, I'm not sorry now because it I'm very happy and it's all a part of my journey. So it's like I think everything's always happening perfectly, and I feel maybe this is I like this perception that I have is basically just that like I truly believe that I'm meant to do this work because I kind of feel like I can bridge the gap between the average kind of everyday person because I grew up in the country, but I've also also have a very vast range of different friendship circles as well. So I feel like my experiences were given to me as gifts so that I can then speak to those, which is the point of the podcast, and all the other things I've done. I believe that can really. If I hadn't have experienced it, I wouldn't be able to navigate truly sharing it through with people, and as well as the things that you were sharing with you creating the spaces. I'm sure that you probably created those spaces as a result of feeling into spaces that you didn't like.
Of course, but it is an energy thing as well. I just want to point that out. So you might appear confident, but there's something energetically we know if you're not.
Well, 73% of communication is not
non-verbal.
Is non-verbal, right? So that's your body language. That's whether you're being
tone.
Exactly.
Everything.
It's not the words that you say. It's your presence and
so we're going off that too. So you pretending that you're all confident. If you haven't actually done the work on yourself and actually don't really accept yourself and think that you are actually someone worth being with, we can sense that too.
So this just brings it back, and this is a perfect kind of segue back into our previous conversation. At the end of the day, it's not about coming up with the right thing to say. No. Whether and we've turned this into a bit of a dating podcast, but it goes.
I'm actually single right at the moment.
It goes wherever it goes, right? And I think it's always perfect. But I love that it just did the full circle and came back. At the end of the day, what enabled me to have the confidence to then go dating and all these different things was because I did the fucking work on myself. It
100%.
wasn't a book. It wasn't a dating app. I mean, actually the book that helped me was Understanding Women, which is the
David Davis book,
the Way of the Superior Man, which is not about men being superior. It's about him being his greatest self.
Which is what we want.
Which is what a woman wants. It's what a man wants. They want to live up to their potential. And I think when you do that, it helps everybody. So bringing it back, dating, relationships are energetic. Everything in life is energetic, whether you want to grow a business, doing sales or doing marketing, to bring that in for the third time. It's all about energy, right? So you have to do the work. So the work that you obviously specialize in now is the spinal energetics. Yeah. And obviously you've got these great locations. I mean, do you have any plans to take this international?
Yeah, so we've been international this year, and again next year we're going to LA again. We're going back there.
They would eat this stuff up.
The LA's where the biggest audience is. Yeah. So I should be spending a bit more time there next year. Yeah. Then we've got the UK, Canada, and then obviously running the courses here, and level 2 being announced next year as well. So
global takeover.
We've got an online course so that people can access this all around the world. We only have about a 10% acceptance rate for that, just because we want to make sure that the integrity is maintained within the work as well. Because we're playing the long game with this technique as well. We're not wanting it big. We don't just accept anyone and everyone, so that way we get as much money as we want.
There's brand integrity. You don't want people around the world saying, and you can't be everywhere. You can't be in every studio across the world at once.
I'd like to be, Scott, but I can't be. So it's just a way of maintaining that the work is in the right hands and with the right intentions, with the right people. And, that people are really wanting to assist people to live a better life, and they're trying to live a better life themselves. And then that's where it all comes from. And whether it's relationships, business, whatever it is, there are all certain areas which reflect to us the alignment within ourselves, the beliefs within ourselves, and the acceptance within ourselves, and the actual energy within ourselves of how that's functioning in that particular path and that pattern in our life. So, family might be great, but work may not be. What can you work on in that? And it's consistent
What is it reflecting? What is that situation reflecting back to you that you have not yet been able to see due to being afraid of what changes need to be made?
Oof.
Go for it. Oh, no, you give me the crickets.
What is that?
Wrong one. You give me the crickets.
I pressed them
Oh, my
all.
God, sensory overload.
ADD.
Yeah.
Oh, what have I done? I've created a song. Scotty, what do I do? I don't even know how to
We
get it up.
beatbox.
Boom, 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 boom. Spinal.
That was so weird.
That went so rogue. So no one's listening to this episode now.
Never,
They've all turned
no.
out.
It's going viral. These crazy nuts are talking about this fucking spinal thing and giving dating advice. So, and everything's coming back to that energy, doing the work. Obviously, you're doing the spinal stuff. Are there any other modalities that you yourself practice?
As a practitioner or
No,
receive?
I just mean, like, obviously for you on a daily basis, like you're getting, do you get spinal? People do spinal on you?
I get spinal. I have
Who gets to do spinal on Says Spinal?
So my practitioners, every so often, they get to as well. Ash Hodgson, Aisha, Pat, whatever. Whenever I'm around doing a course, they'll have
We
a
had
little
Pat
go
on
on
yesterday.
me. Yeah, Pat. But I have a very specific energetic chiropractor. He's old school. He's just has a very simple life.
Who did you learn from?
So I've learned from a lot of different people.
Yeah, gotcha.
A lot of different people. And that's how it's been able to be molded into this kind
Into
of
your
version.
own modality.
Yeah, I've been really blessed with beautiful mentors in my life. Dr. Carly Axford, who does Spinal Flow, was a huge mentor of mine. She's the reason I became a chiropractor. So I've been blessed in many, many different ways from many great teachers. And that's the thing. None of us know this. It's all being passed down. It's all a remembering within us. It's not a human mind construct.
Love that
it's
word,
just
remembering.
It's a remembering. And we're also willing to share with each other. There's no competition, which is so lovely as well.
It's actually just a testament to the word, because if there is competition,
You're in your ego.
well, you're in your ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, there's nothing wrong with having competition in your life. But for me, if I see my friends winning, like I just saw Pat traveling the world. I'd helped him do some ads, and I was like,
he's running bloody Spinal in UK and I haven't.
I know.
What's going on there?
I was saying, I helped him basically just learn the marketing. Why do I keep talking about marketing? Do some marketing for that, and I was just like so proud to just see him out there doing his thing, and in no way, shape, or form do I feel any smaller by seeing what he's doing. I don't understand. I do understand it. It's just the fastest. It's unconscious. I know people do it on purpose, but it's like the fastest way to make yourself feel better about yourself is to put someone else down. Because if I'm feeling insecure,
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah.
In Australia specifically, Australia's very well known for it. So if you go to America,
it's famous.
it doesn't
They know
exist.
about it. It's other places around the world that it's so well known that they know what it's called. I mean, how many do we know of any mental issues in any other country? Like that's how big that tall poppy is. Oh, have you heard about that tall poppy in Australia, man? That's really fucked
it's
up.
a thing because we don't encourage each other. We think by making someone else great that it's making us smaller. And you know, my girlfriend Simi and I, we talk about this a lot as well. We're each other's greatest advocates, and whenever she gets an opportunity, she thinks of me, and vice versa.
You have to have at least a couple people in your life like that.
Yeah.
When I did ayahuasca last year, one of the things that came through the first night, it was just take up some motherfucking space, Scotty. That's what it was. Take up some space, and I was even just physically in my body.
That's what she said to you. Take up some space.
I was in it was like roar like a lion.
Did you roar?
I roared. Yeah.
I love it.
But it was like even in that space, in the darkness of that, somewhere in my psyche, I felt like I felt that it was arrogant to shine.
Take up space.
I felt like that's what came through the first night is that
selfish, arrogance.
You think that it's selfish and you think it's arrogant to take up space, and that's why you're not doing the things that you deep down want to be doing.
You don't get rewarded for it though either. So a lot of the
not
time
only
you'll
rewarded,
get punished.
you get punished, you get
punished.
rejected.
Yeah.
He thinks he's so good. He have to say that. He's running his podcast. Blah, blah, blah. Why does he get? It's like, who is he to do that?
That's why people are scared.
Yeah.
You know, there's fear there for good purpose.
Yes.
And you know, if you are willing to have the courage to do it, you have to choose that courage day in and day out again.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not just a once-off courage choice.
What I would say though is, from my experience, is yes, what you start with courage, and I basically have you seen that that it's like a picture. It's all over the internet. It's like the comfort zone picture. It's a circle. So this is your comfort zone. Then there's the fear zone.
Yeah.
I ran a training in my program, which is basically the short version is that if you swap fear for faith, that's what can allow you to get through. Because as we were discussing before, people want to know with certainty what the thing. You're never going to fucking know with certainty.
No.
The only thing you can do is use courage, and I would say more so than just using courage.
Your intuition,
that you have to have
soul.
some sort of relationship with and belief system around a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And if you don't have one right now, then you can go searching for one. But
you definitely that makes life a lot easier
Game-changing.
because you get to trust that there's something bigger going on than what's within you. And a way to look at that, if you haven't already, is look at coincidences in your life.
serendipitous moments.
Serendipitous moments in your life where you go, if that hadn't have happened, then this wouldn't have led to that. That wouldn't have led to that, and that then I wouldn't be doing this. So if you trust
What's
in those
the worst
moments,
thing that turned out to be the best thing?
Exactly.
If that
Look for
relationship
evidence.
hadn't have fallen apart, I wouldn't have met my wife. If I didn't get sacked, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
There's evidence throughout your entire life that shows you that you're on path, and that there's something else bigger than you.
Yeah.
And it's that whole notion of being separate again. If you realize that we're all connected,
Yes.
then you realize that there's more to. If you actually got everything you ever wanted
Yes.
when you wanted it, that would not be a good life. I know you think it would be, but it wouldn't.
Well, I think first thing, one thing I love to say about this is, especially when you do have faith, is everything is a redirection, not a rejection.
Yeah.
And that one's really helped me.
Even if
lot.
it feels
Even
like
if it-
shit at the time.
Yes.
And it will. Like, I've gone through some really shit times in my life,
yes.
But the learning and the evolution that's come from that
if you're willing to not just pass it off, as if you play the victim, you don't get the learning. If you're like, this always happens to me, blah 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 blah.
I actually was stuck in that for a long time.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, and I
taking
still
responsibility is
sometimes
fucking
do.
hard. We want to blame everybody else. When you give that power away to something or somebody else, then you're
free.
When you're blaming them, yes, it feels good in the moment, but you're literally giving your power to be happy, to create change to somebody else, because you're saying it's their fault. Well, if it's their fault, then I can't do anything about it. If it's my fault, if I have a role to play, even if it isn't my fault, if I claim that, well, it's like, well, that's something I can work with. That's something I can.
Something that you can shape from the experience, and there'll always be something. And life is a bunch of different experiences, but you just need to listen to yourself, and people don't even know what that sounds like.
And that's why we need to start with modalities that allow you to get out of your head
and into yourself.
And into yourself.
True self.
Yes.
Real self.
Yes.
So that's why, it's similar to meditation in that sense. Like even with Vipassana, how, they work through the sakaras and, all that kind of notion that there's things in your body that's stored, and through meditation it moves and it shifts. It's the same kind of notion.
I would even say that it's, I had a conversation with this guy yesterday who had cancer, and he believes it came from stress and blah, blah, blah. He was reflecting back what I've heard from a lot of people, especially men. They struggle to meditate, and I won't go into all the explanations, whatever else. But the reason why I mention it is because I feel like if people are watching this and they're like, "Oh, I struggle to meditate," right? I would just say, just keep going and keep doing it. But aside from that, when you do something like a breath work, which is why I did it with the guys, when you do something like a spinal energetic session or something like that, when you're meditating, you're still in your head, even though that you're letting go, and then afterwards you do then drop in. Yeah. Depending on how you've practiced it, but with this, I find
it takes you to that space.
The time between getting from your head into that relaxation space, because you don't really have to do anything. With meditation, you're still doing something. You're supposed to be focusing on something. So people go, am I doing it right? And they have these, they get stuck in the head of, am I doing it right? Am I going to get the thing?
They still do that with Spinal though too. Am I moving right? Am I doing it right? But it's that whole, you get to be a little bit more passive, so to speak, where we're changing the state with you as the practitioner.
That's what I mean.
You can reach it quicker. Yeah. And once you reach it quicker, every time you have a session, you just go straight into it much faster. Like as soon as you get on the table now, your body goes straight into that state. So and it's nice to have someone else assist you with it too and guide you with it as well.
Yeah, that gives you the confidence and trust to know that reassurance that you are doing right. And I think just the fact that you're working with the body, the focus goes from being in the mind energetically
into the physicality,
into the body. So it's just easier to drop out of the head. If you're in your head trying to let go of the head versus going to the body, you just naturally leave the mind, and you have to, the mind brings you back up, but then you keep going back down, bring it back down. Yeah,
it's such a, and I do encourage everyone listening to experience a session, because it is life-changing, and that's why I'm so passionate about spreading it, you know, throughout the whole world. I want everyone to have access to this work because I can't imagine my life without it. I can't imagine who I'd be without it. In fact, I don't think I'd even be here if I hadn't experienced it. And that's why it's so powerful.
And I completely relate with that philosophy. I think the people that are making, and we were just chatting off camera, both just giving each other some kind of high fives and just saying like,
standard us.
Yeah. I was just saying, dude, what you're doing is fucking awesome. I love to see you thriving. And I think you can tell when somebody really is genuinely authentic, not just trying to create a business. Yeah. That's fine. Nothing wrong with doing that. Yeah. I'm all for it. But what I can feel that's different with what you're doing and what I'm trying to do as well, or not trying to, what I am doing, is there's such a meaning behind it and a movement that's creating from it that it's just so genuine. Yeah. And that can only come from having literally, like, if you hadn't gone through all the hardships, that's the redirect, you know, the things that had to happen in order for you to develop your character and develop the emotional awareness and the spiritual and all those things. That's what makes all of this stuff great, because you wouldn't do all of the things. I remember when we were doing sessions, you didn't have all of the extra headquarters and all the extra shops, and you were like just working massive hours. And I was like, fuck, this girl's, she's really into this.
I worked really hard for those of you out there who think this just happened. I still do work hard.
I'm working these massive hours. I
was doing 12-hour days, 6 days a week with clients back to back.
I remember I was like, fuck, this girl's, it didn't surprise me when I started to see your Instagram blow up, when I started to see you open up multiple places, and then I'm seeing, Pat was obviously working with me, and then you stole him from me. No, I'm just joking. We're not in competition. No, I genuinely was like, oh wow, this is like, this is going to be so fucking awesome. Yeah.
Well, you've been there from the start, Scotty. And that's what's so beautiful. A lot of my clients have been with me from the very start. And yes, this is creating kind of a life on its own, but there's been a lot of dedication. I wouldn't even say hard work. It's been, my life has been this. This has been, I've lived it and breathed it for a decade of my life. And that therefore there's such congruency in that.
You know what it can do for people because you did it for yourself, and that's the point I was trying to make. And now the short version, you took it. I was like, how can I get there? Can I fucking get there?
Well, it's true, because if it hadn't worked for me, so to speak, I wouldn't be so passionate about it. You wouldn't
be putting yourself out there to receive criticism if you don't believe in within the deepest part of your bones and heart. Because nothing, when you're 100% certain about something, there's nothing any person can say, because you know the truth.
I just know it.
And it's not just truth of like ego truth where you're just holding it up with some fragile thing that anybody could rock. It's like the people who make big moves, it's not because it's something that they're telling themselves in front of the mirror 50 times a day. It's because you've lived it.
Yeah. It's a knowing. There's no question for me. So
spiritually, mentally, everything. Physically.
It can't touch the signs when people criticize my work. It doesn't touch it, because I'd have to believe that part for it to touch.
Yes.
And I don't believe it because I know it.
Yes. So when you see all of the transformations. I mean, me case in point, and all of the other people. The fact that 400 people want to come and learn this work is just absolutely phenomenal. And I'm really excited to see the ripple effects that's gonna have. And you've already got people that have just done. Was Pat one of your first courses?
Yeah, Pat was my first course. I think
first course, and they're already taking your work and then sharing it with all these people and impacting people.
Yeah, and that's I knew I couldn't do it all on my own. No, I couldn't work any more hours.
Yes,
so I was like, how can I get this out there? And plus, Pat and Aisha and a few other of my practitioners were like, can you just get a course going? Like, we want to learn this. This is changing my life. We want to spread it. So I had the community around me that wanted to share it as well. There was a need. And, it's cool. I'm excited to see where it goes in the next year. We've got a little plan, but what that looks like and what happens.
A little plan, hey?
Yeah, and I don't usually have a plan, I've got to be honest, but we started to hire some very structured, organised individuals because someone needs to be, because I'm the visionary, so that's not my skill set. So we've hired other people.
Well done. Well done on doing that.
So we've got a plan.
You're the visionary, and so you need an integrator.
We've got the integrators. So we've got a plan for next year about, the travel and what the course, the timeline and everything looks like. And, we're open to see where that goes. But
systems and processes.
Yeah, no, not my thing, but they're other people's things, thank God. And so, you know, I'm actually excited because I don't know where it's going myself. I've been, you know, happy with what it's done in the last year regardless. But that's, you know,
You're on for the ride.
I'm on for the ride, and I'm just going to keep going as long as my soul and heart says this is the way, then that's the way.
Until it doesn't. Okay, last question, and we're going to wrap it up.
All right, last one.
We already spoke about this, but I want to get just off the top of the dome, concise answer.
Yep.
What do men need to do to become great again? Bullet points.
We've
already touched on them. I was going to shorten it into.
Yeah, they need to actually be not afraid to be who they actually are.
Awesome.
They need to have the courage to change.
Yes, big one.
Big one.
And I would just add, which is a part of courage, the vulnerability.
That was my next one.
Oh, sorry. Took the words right out of my mouth.
The vulnerability to transform themselves
Yes.
and the lives around them, and just to be worthy of trust. Be safe men. Be
Yes,
trustworthy.
yes, love
and
that.
do what you say what you do. Live your life in a way where we're inspired to be by your side too.
And I just want to add, you can be an imperfect person.
Oh, please be.
But I'm sure what Sarah's also saying is, as long as you're actively trying to become a better person,
That's it.
You can still be a shit person some days. You don't have to be perfect. You're not going to get it fucking right every single time. Because a lot of men think that. And I felt like that too. It's like nothing I ever do is ever good enough. That was a belief I had a lot.
Yeah.
I really had to heal that one. I would see when that past trauma would kind of come up.
Well, you want to feel appreciated and seen.
And that's the thing that I think men don't feel.
Well, there's things women can do too.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's not be wrong with that.
Okay, last thing that I said, that was the last one. What are some things that women could do?
Women can appreciate and acknowledge a little bit more.
I would say a lot more.
What also we can do is, if you do make a mistake, not jump all over
you
and
shame you.
And then also, you've done all these things right for me over decades. You make a mistake and then I leave you.
Yes.
You know, so it's about making sure that you understand that when a man is actually really doing everything in his power to make your life better as well, that's a very special and meaningful thing.
Yes.
So actually acknowledging what that means, because that's rare.
Yeah,
that's rare as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sarah,
yes,
thank you
Scotty.
so much. I had an awesome time.
What a time.
Should we press one more button?
You go. I want you to do it.
I want to press, what's this one?
That.
Fucking not that one again. There we go. In closing,
Loved
Sarah.
it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having yourself.
Well, you had. Thanks for having
You
me
are in my
at your,
space.
at your headquarters. I'm in your space. Thanks so much for having such an open, genuine conversation. I had a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you at some point in the future, maybe even LA. I'm going to LA to interview Joel Brown.
When are you
Joel?
going?
Well, I'm going to Italy end of Feb. We're going to go for a month. We're running some retreats over there.
Lovely.
For my wife's academy, and then I'm probably going to kind of go through Miami, LA on the way home.
I'm there August,
and
September.
do some podcasts. So,
well, they'll love it.
If you've got any connections over there, by the way, of any people that you think that would like to share stuff, then I'm going to set up a whole bunch. Anyways.
Awesome. Thanks, Scotty.
High five.
I'll high five you with the left one. That's not easy. I had to think about that. I really wanted the right, but I hit it. I made it.
All right, guys, I'm going to drop all of Sarah's links below the videos on whatever
Please
platform. You can check her out on Instagram, YouTube, whatever else.
TikTok.
I'm sure she's TikTok. She's everywhere. Come and check her stuff and do yourself a fucking favor and do a session. Get off your ass. There's more things opening up. This is not a paid promotion. I get nothing out of this other than just helping you guys to transform and become great men. With that said, I'm Scott James Andrews. This is the Make Men Great Again podcast, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
What an awesome episode. And if you want to watch more, just click the button here, or here. Watch the next one, and we'll see you soon.